This is John Bailey, the epic voice of Honest Trailers, and you're listening to the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. It's a Fangirls podcast with five-ish people. The tangents and squee will continue. Squee.
The tangents and squee continue all the way to episode 449 of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. Time for me to go and sit on Tony's throne. I'm not gonna flush, if you get my drift. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us. Let's start off like we're doing from the virtual table and see who joined us this week.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hope everyone is doing all right.
Yep. Everyone survived. Well, not everybody watched the Super Bowl. I get it. And congrats to those who are cheering for the Chiefs.
Congrats to the Vortex boys.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Although there's one sports YouTuber I watch. He's a Broncos fan, so he's a little salty. But I did say something that I do want to reiterate, and I don't think a lot of Chiefs fans have been this way. But I'm like, this is why we didn't like the Patriots. Is when they got real arrogant and tried to be really snotty about things. It's like, okay. You guys, you're this season, you kind of didn't play your best, but then you went and won the Super Bowl in the end anyway. You are no longer underdogs. Nobody is not
discounting
you. Yeah, we're not. It's not happening. Okay,
yep.
We're just gonna.
We get it now.
From now on, we get it.
Yeah.
From now on, we're gonna assume that you're gonna win, and we'll play. We'll play the games. We'll be happy if/when our team beats you. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But no one is discounting you ever again, because y'all were like that one kid in my math class when I was in middle school and high school. In fact, he followed me all the way through. He just kind of coasted all through. Didn't really do a lot of the assignments. Didn't really show any urgency. But when it was time for those big tests at the end of the term, end of the year, he aced them and got a better score than I did. So it's like, why did I even bother?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I'm feeling
pretty much
today.
the curve breaker.
Pretty much, yes. It's just
and
like
sometimes by skin of teeth.
yes. So some of us, so those of us who worked hard and showed up the whole year, the whole season, we're gonna grumble at you because, dude. But anyway, now, congratulations and sorry, Niners. My sister, you're my sister's team, and she and her little girls were all cheering for you guys. But it was a good game. I will say that. I mean, it was a very, very defensive game.
Yes.
So that was cool. I mean, they were pretty evenly matched. Just
Yeah, I mean, it almost kind of literally came down to the last seconds.
It really did. It was basically who was gonna wear themselves out first, and unfortunately, it was the 49ers. So there you go. And just hope everybody hope and pray. But that we don't have another pandemic. But in the meantime, maybe buy an extra thing of toilet paper.
Yeah, to be on the safe side.
Just be on the safe side. I'm not keen on history repeating itself, but there's been that conspiracy theory going on. So.
Well, number 13 as well.
Next big thing. Next big sports thing will be March Madness, so that'll be fun.
Yeah. Or sports ball. Yay!
I still don't care, but that's okay.
Right.
Let's do the news.
Certain sports ball, but besides
I just say the next big sports ball is going to take over my city, and because we host the Big Ten tournament
Ah, yes. That's right.
So, yeah.
Well,
so
Indiana's a pretty big basketball state anyway, so.
Yeah. So it's always wild though, because we have Comic-Con in March, and sometimes they overlap. So.
Oh, well,
two different types of cosplay going on.
all the college rowdies coming out with their face paint and wigs and what have you.
Yep. So, all right. Well, let's do the news.
Indeed.
So we got news just kind of all over the place.
They always have movie trailers during the Super Bowl, so that's
even
not even number of those.
Yeah, well, most of those I don't think we care about. But speaking of movies, the Academy Awards has announced that they're adding a new category, and no, it's not most popular film. They are adding the category for best casting, and that will be a category starting next year. So
interesting choice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time that they've added a new category since 2001, which is when they added the best animated feature film, which I find it hilarious that it took them like a decade ish from Beauty and the Beast getting being the first animated feature to get nominated for best picture for them to actually add that particular category.
Okay, there was another animated movie, maybe it was around about that time, maybe, that was nominated for Best Picture.
Maybe they figured Beauty and the Beast was a fluke, and then it happened again, and they're like, "Oh, crap!
Like, no, we can't have cartoons."
Yes,
sullying our beautiful award. Now, I know there was another one after Beauty and the Beast. I'm just blanking on the year and what movie it was. It may have been around 2001, but anyway. So I'm kind of I'm like, we got this one, but still haven't had a category for best stunt work.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, we desperately need a category for stunt work, and even if it needs to be its own category, they need to start acknowledging motion capture performances.
Yes.
So, considering we're, speaking of the trailers we got during the Super Bowl, yet another Planet of the Apes movie. So
I know, I was a little surprised. I mean, I know there's like a million sequels, reboots, whatever sorts of things, but I was like, oh, right, there's another Planet of the Apes movie. Okay, I mean, I've heard, they're good. People like them, but I'm just sort of like, that's okay. That's another one.
Yep.
Okay.
So
that one, it always just kind of surprises me. It's like, oh, that movie's happening. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are.
Yep. Yep. So there is that. And then Disney had their first shareholder meeting of the year. So end of their fiscal first quarter. That's a lot of, if you're not numbers and money person, you can go online and read all of it. Mm-hmm. But in the process of dollars and cents, this, that, and the other thing, Bob Iger announced that Disney is working on a standalone streaming service for ESPN, which fine, because I don't use the ESPN portion of my bundle as it is. So I think I've used it like once. So
hold on a minute, because ESPN Plus, they've had
that's
one
separate.
I mean, even before Disney Plus was a thing, there was an ESPN streaming service.
Yeah. But now they're gonna do something.
So they're going
presumably better.
Okay, well, whatever. Because I'm like, this isn't. I'm like, because it's been around. But anyway, whatever. Carry on.
Yeah. Sports is a big deal, as we saw yesterday.
Yes. Very much so.
They have partnered with Epic Games, and apparently our Bob Iger foresees just the big ass Disney Fortnite gaming universe
with lots of shopping. Buy our crap.
Yeah, which I don't play Fortnite, so but I understand like the skins and stuff can be very popular.
Yes.
And
so I'm gonna say this because Epic Games, there's a bit of a beef among gamers with Epic Games. So if you don't know, Epic Games is a gaming service not unlike Steam, but it's a little bit different, but where they will host video games, you can buy them, but their big thing is microtransactions. Where they will nickel and dime you to death. And that has been very controversial among gamers because it's not just like, oh, you can buy something that's cosmetic and you want to buy this outfit for your character. But then they like sneak in things that are like, you can't do this part of the game without paying money, even though you've already bought the game.
Right, which
especially
stinks.
Which really stinks. And especially where it's kids, a lot of kids who play Fortnite and who will buy things. I'm uncertain if this is the case with Fortnite because I'm not that familiar with it, but there are some games like you cannot play it unless you have a credit card on file, and those microtransactions, if you're just like, oh, it's just $2, buy that. Oh, that's just $2 or $3.
It adds up.
It adds up
very quick.
Very, very quickly. And it's kind of predatory.
I have several mobile games that I don't want to think about how much money I've put into them.
Right. But where Fortnite is very much, a game for young kids play it, like kids under 18, and even some 20 somethings. It's when I saw they were partnering with Epic, I was like, ooh, that's a bad look. It's like, you sure you want to do that, Bob? So I'm reserving judgment. It might be okay, but I'm just like, oh, Epic, no good, no bueno. But I've heard all the I've heard all the complaints and the doom and gloom about it. But I don't know. But that's just my point of view. When I saw Epic, I was like, oh boy. But
it's probably because they already have a licensing deal because you could get Disney related stuff in Fortnite. So
yeah, it's just in the gaming community, it's not a good look.
Yeah.
So there are some issues with that.
Yeah. And excuse me. And then Disney has confirmed and also surprised the people with some animation film announcements. So they have confirmed Frozen 3 is in the works. Frozen 4
anyone who's surprised by this, and slap yourself.
Is an idea that is supposedly happening. We're getting Toy Story 5. Why? Geez. I do not know.
Don't.
Yeah. We're also getting a sequel to Moana, which is already ready and will be released this Thanksgiving. So.
Although I heard that one was originally supposed to be a TV series, because now they have to, because I also saw an article where they are trying to they have to go talk to Dwayne Johnson to reprise his role, because if it was going to be the TV series, they were going to have somebody else voice Maui, but now that it's a movie, they gotta go hurry and get The Rock to come back.
I hadn't heard that. All I'd seen is that they weren't sure if Dwayne was going to be voicing Maui in the sequel because he's supposed to be playing the live action version of Maui in the live action remake. So,
oh, here it is. Here's the article from Deadline. Dwayne Johnson in talks to reprise Maui for Disney's animated Moana 2 live action pick bound to ship dates.
I would think they, considering it's supposed to be due on Thanksgiving, they should already know that, right?
You would think, but this came out on February 8th. This article. Yes, and it sounds like they're not even sure if Ali Crovallo can come back either. So that's interesting.
Huh. That is interesting.
Yeah.
So
the studio was so blown away by the Disney Plus series they had in development, they decided to turn it into a theatrical sequel.
Well, and apparently Moana was the most streamed movie on Disney Plus last year. Mm-hmm. It was streamed like 1 billion times.
I mean, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so. how many times have you gotten your welcome stuck in your head?
Yeah. Or how many times I say you're welcome to somebody and I hear the Rock's voice in my head, but because it's in my head, nobody is, they don't know that I'm thinking like I'm saying it, like, you're welcome. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. There's a number of other things. They confirmed that the Percy Jackson series is getting a second season.
And I feel like that was well received. The first season was well received. I haven't watched it yet. I kind of want to.
Yeah.
But
and then if you didn't see it in the theaters, or if you didn't get a ticket to see her in person, the Eras Tour concert film is going to be on Disney Plus in March. So.
Oh my gosh, we can't escape her, man. We can't. It's not that I don't like her. I actually like her music. I'm just like, okay, let's give it a rest. Oh, Taylor.
Hey, I'd rather watch it in the comfort of my own house.
I would too, but I
then I can sing as loud as I want, and I have nobody to bother except my husband.
There have been a lot of tweens that I've seen running around who have Eras tour T-shirts and merch and bags and stuff like that, and I was like, holy crap, this is nuts. It's just, I don't know. I'm kind of amused by it, if nothing else. It's just like, oh, Taylor, here she is again.
Mm-hmm. I saw her when. That's my my strange claim to fame. Is I saw her back all in like 2007. Yeah, back when she first started.
When she was still a country singer. Not many people really talk about that much, but she started out in country, so.
So. All I know is I'm going to find someplace else to be when she comes through Indianapolis in November. So.
Oh.
And she's here for 2 nights, so. I'm just going to find someplace else to be. Thank you.
Let's go busy.
Well, speaking of the Taylor Bowl, so yes, we did get a number of, we got some pretty good ads.
Yep.
My favorite is still the migrating NFL players from teams that are themed after birds.
That was so funny.
Yes, them coming and perching on someone's porch next to a bird feeder, going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Paramount Plus listener package is kind of cute.
There's like a guy, he's like a bird enthusiast, and he's telling us how they, the end of every season they migrate, but then they'll be back at the start of the new season, and then one of them drops a tiny little football. It looks like an egg in his hands. He's like, oh, a rookie.
It reminded me. Okay, so there is a lady on Twitter. I think her Twitter handle. Well, her name's Rachel. It's Rachel_2 is her Twitter handle. And she does artwork for some sports YouTubers. But she did a couple of pieces. One is all of the cat teams.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was all of the bird teams. And it's funny because you've got the cardinal. He's just this little tiny guy. He's standing on top. They're on like, the uprights, the goalposts. And he's just standing in the middle. There's like an eagle looking at him like, what are you doing here? There's a falcon that is just kind of sulking in the corner. There's a seahawk that's looking hungry. And the raven is just kind of like, I'm just here so I won't get fined. And then she does the expressions on it. So that commercial made me think of all the bird, her bird team picture, just because they're the birds.
Yeah,
so that's funny. So look her up. She's hilarious. She's also a Chiefs fan, so she's happy.
Yeah. That ad aired a few times last night. And every time I just cracked up. So, and then shout out to my acquaintance Tony Robinetti for adding Super Bowl ad to his acting resume, as he was one of Ben Affleck's backup dancers in the Dunkin' Donuts commercial. So,
sweet.
The Dunkings. So.
That one was.
He's the one. As you're looking at the screen, he would be the one to Ben Affleck's far right, and when they walk in the door to the recording studio, curly hair, big square glasses. So, and no, they did not get to keep the jumpsuits, but they did get to keep the shoes.
Cool.
Great.
So
that one was a funny one too, and because there's some ads that get celebrities on there, and you're just kind of like, I don't know why the celebrities are here, but the ones I got for that one, they were like having fun, not taking themselves seriously, and also I'll say here what I said last night in our sports ball chat. I like Tom Brady a lot more now that he's retired, because he's like in all these ads and stuff, and he is actually pretty funny. It's like, you know what? He's like, I didn't know you had such a good sense of humor. Or maybe now that he's not playing football and not getting hit so much, he's like, yeah, now I can laugh at myself. So I'm kind of like, you know what? Good on you, not taking yourself too seriously. So it's like, I couldn't stand you when you were playing, but now that you're just, in ads and stuff, sure, I'll take it.
And I like Sir
Apparently
Patrick.
Giselle feels the opposite, but maybe
he had to get rid of the load. I don't know. Maybe that's how he got his sense of humor back. Who knows?
Maybe.
I'm not going to speculate on someone's private life, but
Yep.
And then Sir Patrick with the sports metaphors.
Yes.
The Paramount Plus, because I don't remember seeing it on the main
I'd
screen.
seen that one a few times.
Yeah, I knew it was out
pre Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But then I had to share it in the sports ball chat, because it's just like, it's glorious to see the whole commercial and not just little snippets.
Well, for those of us who grew up with Nickelodeon, Nicktoons back before it was just SpongeBob wall to wall. Having the joke of,
Hey Arnold,
a child with a football-shaped head, and there's Arnold from Hey Arnold. I'm like, aww, I love that show.
And then the punchline is real pigskin.
Yeah.
Which, please go ahead. Nobody likes Peppa Pig.
Peppa's like,
point of order. My children love Peppa. that and Bluey. Peppa's actually a lot of fun. It's a lot of, maybe it's not as okay. How do I say this? There's a lot because there's a guy who worked on Bluey. I think it's like the creator. He actually worked on Peppa Pig, and I can see a lot of like the humor and like the dynamics in Bluey that started in Peppa Pig. And there are times like when I'm watching Peppa and the adults are actually pretty funny, but Bluey takes it up a notch. But I'm like, yeah, these two are cut from the same cloth. So so those of us like I don't mind Peppa so much. Peppa's actually kind of a lot of fun. But anyway, but yes, I laughed at that. I'm like, and Lottie was kind of watching over my shoulder. She's like, "There's Peppa." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not going to tell you what they're going to do to her because I had my earbuds in. She couldn't hear what was going on.
It's like you don't want to hear what they got planned for Peppa.
No.
Good thing they cut there because I don't know. I want to see a part two.
I'm watching something with Peppa in it. Totally.
Yeah.
But it was funny. It was cute. And then the one I really liked, it was the M&M's commercial early on where they're like making M&M's, was it comfort rings or something? It's really those.
Yeah, they're using M&M's technology to make championship rings for those that have never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, they have Dan Marino and a couple other guys who like, and it's like, and they're polished with the sigh of second place. And then there's Scarlett Johansson. She shows up randomly, like, well, I've never won an Oscar. I've always got beaten twice in 1 year.
Twice, yes.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, so there were some pretty decent ads this year. Some that were a little weird, but that's normal. So
yeah.
Anyway, but of course, movie trailers.
Yes, but movie trailers are also a big part of it. There's a lot of studios, they like to premiere trailers at the Super Bowl. So we got our first look at Wicked Part 1.
I hope this one's good. I really do.
It looks really good. I'll give it that.
It does.
Yeah, like the look of it is really good. I mean, I know this one's kind of been in the works for a while. I mean, I've never seen the musical. I've listened to the soundtrack quite a bit. I've read the book. But I mean, obviously, if you read the Gregory Maguire book, it is very different from the musical. But all the beats are there. So this will be interesting. I'll want to see how that goes. So it looks like you said, visually it looks amazing. So we will see. Although the actresses, I mean, I get it, they're in school, but they seem very young. I wasn't expecting the characters to be that young, but maybe it'll be fine. Who knows?
Yeah.
And then,
but it does look really good. I'm just tickled that Jeff Goldblum is playing the wizard.
Well, yes.
So
I mean, I'm kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense.
Well, considering, I mean, the musical and the book have been around. I mean, the musical's been around for 20 years, and the book's been around for even longer. Considering the wizard is Elphaba's biological father. So, when we get to presumably the scene where he is seducing Elphaba's mother, I just know it's going to be hilarious. So, and then I've been absolutely cracking up because of the amount of trolling that apparently Ryan Reynolds had nothing better to do. The game was not keeping his attention, so he spent his time on social media after the new Deadpool trailer.
Yeah. and I did love Hugh Jackman's response to one of them on X. Fixed it.
Yeah. He changed the title, the logo from Deadpool and Wolverine to Wolverine and Asshole.
I just chuckle. I'm like, that is perfect. I mean, and that would be typical Logan Wolverine fashion too.
And then if you read Ryan Reynolds' comment on the post on Instagram, he said, "Pump the brakes. It's a long road to July, Peanut." So.
Well, and also what's funny,
I'm waiting for Sir Patrick Stewart as Professor X to step in. Now, boys.
Yeah.
What's funny is, like, because we had Hugh Jackman in Logan, and that was a very serious, kind of a heavy movie, and that was supposed to be the big send off, and it was so dramatic and this and that. And then all of a sudden, here comes Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, like saying, "Yeah, we're bringing him back," and it's and it's very irreverent humor and not to like, and it doesn't feel like it's ruining that send off, that Logan send off. But I'm tickled that it's just, he came back for one more movie, and it's this one.
Yeah, because I was actually talking with Shalane. I was texting with Shalane, and she was asking, about Deadpool because she's not seen the first two Deadpool movies, and she's like, he's in the X-Men universe. I'm like, he's in a X-Men universe, but because he's Deadpool, he's aware that there are other universes.
Yes,
and therefore that opens up the door to do this multiverse thing. I figured it was going to be some sort of multiverse thing because y'all know I've said this several times that I think Deadpool is going to be the one who opens the door for us to get the X-Men into quote unquote our Marvel universe. But I did not see the TVA being part of that.
Yeah.
So when they showed up, and I'm like, wait a minute, those are TVA pruning sticks, and then they push them through the door. I'm like, holy crap, we're going to the TVA!
Morbius!
Yes!
What's going on here? You got
to do. Yeah, so I was like, I'm totally here for this. So I would imagine, this is purely me speculating, that probably some of the scenes that are in this trailer probably aren't going to end up in the movie, or they're going to be different in the movie. I think they probably shot stuff specifically knowing it was going to the trailer that was going to be like, Wade looking straight at the camera when mentioning Disney. So although there is the giant toppled over, like, a la, Planet of the Apes with the Statue of Liberty, except it's the the 20th Century Fox logo in ruins. I'm dying. I'm so excited for this. So I love the first two Deadpool movies. I'm so excited for that. I'm so happy that they're letting Deadpool continue to be Deadpool, but he is now part of the MCU. So he's Marvel Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited. It's gonna be a while till July, unfortunately. I'm ready.
Yeah.
That is the trick with these Super Bowl movie trailers, is they are because the Super Bowl is in February.
Yeah.
And most of these movies aren't going to come out until summertime or
at the earliest.
And
in Wicked's case, it's Thanksgiving. The Moana 2 and Wicked are opening the same weekend.
Yeah,
so
it's not uncommon to see this film is not yet rated because it's not in the point of its production where it is time for it to be screened.
Yeah. It's like we got enough here that we were able to put together a trailer.
It's like, here's a trailer for the Super Bowl, and we spent $1 gazillion for this spot, but here's a trailer so our movie is coming. It's like, okay. And that's been going on for decades, as long because there have been as long as the commercials have been as big a deal as the Super Bowl itself.
Well, considering Deadpool, they just wrapped filming like last month.
Yes.
So, but yeah. So, but I'm totally ready for more Deadpool. Wow. And then next door to me ish, over in Ohio at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we have our 2024 nominees. So you can go vote. But this year's nominees include Mary J. Blige, Mariah Carey, Cher. I can't believe Cher hasn't been
made it
voted
in
already.
yet.
So, Dave
Unless
Matthews
she was
Band.
in with Sunny.
I don't think so.
Mm.
Oh. Dave Matthews Band. Foreigner.
Nice.
Peter Frampton. Kool and the Gang. Lenny Kravitz. Oasis. Why? I know. I understand Britpop. You know, they had 2 songs and they sound exactly the same, and the brothers hate each other. So, Sinead O'Connor, who we just lost last year. Ozzy.
Yep.
So, among others. So, but yeah, you can go to the Rock Hall website. You can vote daily, once a day. And they will take the fan votes.
3,
do
I
some
think.
math.
I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll take the fan votes, do some math, and along with the actual voting body of the Hall of Fame, and then we'll get our actual inductees later this year, and then the ceremony will be after that. It's usually in the summer-ish. But yeah, you can go vote. Still no Weird Al though.
Nope.
So.
And then there's still a few too on my list that still haven't made it in yet. This is like, okay, they're not getting any younger. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like some of these I'm like, they aren't in already, and then some of them I'm like, but the 90s was like yesterday. They shouldn't be eligible yet.
No, exactly.
It's when you start seeing bands that you grew up with, or you listened to in high school. When they were
like I said, like Mariah Carey. It's like the 90s were just like yesterday. She shouldn't be eligible yet.
I know.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute.
Kool in the Gang? No, not yet.
Just continue. Getting older, time marches on.
No, I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
I don't either.
Today, Lottie asked Jared, "How old are you, Daddy?"
Ooh.
And then she asked, "How old is Mommy?" And I'm like,
Skeety, thin, ice, sweetie.
Yeah.
Older than you.
Right,
yeah.
Yes. Mommy
like
said 27 and holding.
Yeah.
Never really thought it would bother me, but now I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, but she's so young. Like, you could tell her, but like, does she really understand what that means? Probably
no,
not.
Because the other day we were driving somewhere, and she's like, "I'm gonna count," and she started going 1, 2, 3, and then okay, so then get through up to 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 20, 10, 30, 31,
yeah,
30, 10, 40, and I had to stop her and explain. No, that's not how counting works.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you're
I wouldn't
doing
feel too bad
there,
about
but not quite.
Like she it's like, okay, you're getting the general idea, but yeah. It's just it was funny.
Yeah. You're getting the faint idea of what a decade is, my dear. So yoo-hoo!
Yeah, you're almost there.
Yeah.
I could just see in her little face, like the gears turning, like, wait, but I count to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, and oh, so yeah, that was fun.
Yep. There's that with the news. So move on to feedback. With some feedback from Shalane. She says the only Three Musketeers I've seen is the Mickey, Donald, a Goofy one, and a little bit of the Disney live action. And also, I think they appear as a cameo once upon a time. They probably do. Also, the Shakespeare Festival in my hometown did the Three Musketeers, but I didn't go see it before. I was busy getting used to my new college. So I do want to read the book of the Three Musketeers one of these days. Maybe a short version. That's probably a good idea.
Yeah,
the short version.
It's a very good idea.
So since you talked about Three Musketeers, you girls got any other classic fiction or adaptations of classic fiction you plan on talking about, like The Count of Monte Cristo, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer, The Prince and the Pauper, To Kill a Mockingbird, Treasure Island, along with Treasure Planet. Well, we did do Muppet Treasure Island. So we did do Treasure Planet, right? We done Treasure Planet?
I think so. May have to look in the archive and see.
Tarzan, The Jungle Book, Robin Hood, Swift Family Robinson, The Wizard of Oz, which The Wizard of Oz celebrates its 85th anniversary this year, and we get the new Wicked movie coming out. I mean, we did do a version of Robin Hood. Maybe we'll do the Disney version of Robin Hood where every character is an animal, because that one's way better than the Kevin Costner version. So
I like that one. Now I got the theme song running through my head. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, but speaking of music that gets stuck in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm singing it. Anyway, so yes.
Yep.
Robin Hood and Little John walk through the forest. I had someone somewhere claim that the I don't know what they were thinking of, that they claimed that wasn't a musical. I'm like, no, there's several songs.
They're singing, yes.
Yeah. In fact, one could even argue that the scene at the archery tournament after he's been exposed and everything, and they're running around, that could almost be a great big musical dance number, even though there's no singing. A lot of choreography.
I can see it. Yeah, I can buy that.
The music, the score behind it is awesome. So I claim it.
Yep. She has new Ghostbusters movie to celebrate 40 years of the OG Ghostbuster movie. Hell yeah! I love the Ghostbusters.
Hey, Ghostbusters.
Yeah. So anyway, I have kind of a thought/theory, because I'd read this earlier. Since Ghostbusters is a successful film, got a sequel, an anime movie, then got a remake that turned into a flop, then got a sequel-ish film like Star Wars, Jurassic World, Jumanji, then it became a successful film. That's kind of weird how that worked, isn't it? I wish Brendan Fraser's Mummy films would get a sequel, like the Ghostbusters treatment, because those films were hit in the 2000s, and then got a remake, and that was a flop. Then they should do a sequel-ish to those films, because I was thinking, since we got sequel film series of Star Wars, Jurassic World, Jumanji, now Ghostbusters, and pretty much Rocky with the Creed films that I haven't seen yet, and pretty much Men in Black and Charlie's Angels and the Ocean's films as well. What films are next to get sequel-ish films like the Brendan Fraser Mummy films, Jaws, or The Godfather? We do not need any more Godfather movies. Thank you. Those are hours of my life I am never getting back.
The Brendan Fraser Mummy movies do not need to be touched. I know he's kind of having a bit of a renaissance, but I shudder to think what will be done with them. They are perfect. Leave it alone.
Yep. Unless they can manage to do something like they did with Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yes.
That is true. If they can do it, but I really feel like Afterlife. I mean, I know Frozen Empire is coming out this year, and that one looks exciting and fun. But that seems to be the exception rather than the rule. So
that is true. Yeah,
I'm like, the Mummy is perfect. I mean, I know they did. Well, they tried to do the Universal monsters with Tom Cruise, and that one kind of. That did not go over well. So
yeah.
like,
Every single time I see the Mummy on the guide, I hit the info to make sure. And there was one time they had the info wrong. So here I am, prepped on a weekend thinking, all right, I'm going to watch The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. Nope. Ooh, I was like, all right.
Somebody done goofed.
No, I resisted the urge to throw the remote. So then I went diving for my copy, my physical copy of The Mummy, and rectified that situation in PDQ.
It's like you promised me this one, you gave me the other one, so I'm going to fix this problem right now.
Yes.
That being said, just in case anybody missed this, on the official Jurassic World / Park, whatever, Facebook page, late last week, they did post a photo of the Jurassic logo with, and all it says underneath is July 2nd, 2025.
Well, okay.
So we might be getting another Jurassic movie.
America!
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I mean, people kind of agree that the first one was really the best one, and the rest are just kind of middling to crap.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, you know what? That one, it was kind of dead from the start. So yeah, go ahead and milk it all you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
We still have that first one that is just amazing and incredible and fantastic, and the rest are just sort of they're trying. They're trying.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're still waiting for that Jaws. What Jaws number is it in Back to the Future Part 2?
It was like Jaws 14,
something like that.
Something is it? Ridiculous.
Jaws 35 or something.
35. I don't remember. Because I just remember the big holographic, fake-looking shark that comes out.
Yeah. We'll have to do Jaws one of these days.
Put it on the list.
Yeah, we're definitely not doing The Godfather, though.
Bigger boat.
Yep. He says, plus we're getting a sequel film to Twister and kind of a sequel film to the remake of The Karate Kid with Jackie Chan, which isn't my favorite. Yeah. Which actually, from what I understand, Twisters, which again, we got the trailer for during the Super Bowl, was intended to be a sequel. But then when none of the cast was willing to come back.
Good job, guys. Way to put principle above money.
That they decided that this is going to be more of a soft reboot, I guess. Which, I mean, I don't know what Helen Hunt is doing these days. Obviously, Bill Paxton we lost several years ago, so he couldn't come back even if he wanted to. We also lost Philip Seymour Hoffman, so you got two, you know, I mean,
two tentpole characters, kind of
two kind of important. I mean, would Carrie Elwes still be up for it? I don't know.
But Carrie Elwes' character kicked the bucket, though.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they brought.
That's true. I mean, they could have found a way. I don't know.
The Independence Day sequel, so who knows?
Yeah. They could still reference him.
Twin brother, evil twin brother.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Soap opera.
Yeah. So, but yeah, because of the remaining cast and characters that were still alive by the end of the movie weren't willing to come back. This is actually going to be more of a soft reboot, from what I understand. So
that's probably for the best.
Yeah. I saw the trailer. Looks interesting, but it might be a little more white knuckle edgy than what I want in a tornado movie. But yes, we're dealing with tornadoes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least this is like slightly more realistic than, something like Sharknado. So
yeah, true.
I did appreciate the jokes people were making. Like, wait, I thought Sharknado was the sequel to Twister.
Yeah. Yeah, not quite. So no word if Shania Twain's gonna do, the the
music
song. Yeah, the music. So and yeah, we are getting the weird Karate Kid sequel remake because it's got Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio in it. So
and see, this is like, I mean, people were praising Cobra Kai to high heaven as sort of this is how you do a sequel to a legacy property, and I'm like, great, that's awesome that this show's doing so well. And then they go and like, well, we're gonna do another movie. I'm like, oh gosh, like, why are you
Karate Kid 3.0?
All right, fine.
That's kind of what it feels like. That's kind of what it feels like. So
indeed. Oh well.
We'll see what happens with that one, I guess.
Yeah.
So
it will be an interesting movie season. That is for sure. See how it goes.
Yeah. So well, thank you, Shalane, for your feedback. As always.
Yes, indeed.
So moving on to this week's main topic, which is What If Season 2. I'm sure it takes a lot. I know animation is a long, intensive art form of in itself, even with all the technology and stuff today. But dang, these are so good, and I wish we'd get more in a season.
I know.
So, but yeah, and I love that. Like, this is technically it's an anthology. So, but not every single episode is a standalone. Some of these do reference others. But and I like to see the development of some of the plot lines that were left kind of dangling after the first season. So and how they've also introduced some aspects that are going to or are tying into some of the live action stuff. So yeah, so we got 9 episodes with this season. Of course, it's the idea of what if a single change affected the MCU, and it's a kind of all over the place as far as characters are concerned. The first one is what if Nebula joined the Nova Corps, because Ronan ends up killing Thanos all the way back in 2014. So the events of Infinity War and Endgame never occur. So Nebula goes to Xandar and joins the Nova Corps. And this first one is definitely, but the thing is because Ronan killed Thanos, he still has his big hammer thing, and he goes to attack Xandar, and what Xandar does is they put this giant shield, protective shield around the planet to keep Ronan out, but then that also makes it so Xandar can't do like trade or anything with other planets, and then Xandar kind of becomes very Blade Runner-esque. This is very Blade Runner inspired. But it there's a whole, it's got a very noir feel to it. Yondu gets killed. So Nebula has to figure out who did it, and there's this whole thing with the code to undo the shield, which would let Ronan back in, and then it turns out that Nova Prime is actually the bad guy. But Nebula, being Nebula, who doesn't trust anybody except herself, figures it out and manages to destroy Ronan and stop Nova Prime at the same time. But we do get, I always find it interesting who comes back to voice their characters from the MCU and who doesn't. And some of it, I'm sure, is just availability. But I also think probably there's a somewhat what kind of like contract they'd signed with Marvel to begin with, and like what kind of things they would be contractually obligated to do. Most of when they get somebody other than the actor that we know, usually it's a pretty good approximation. There's a few exceptions, but I'll get to those when we get to them. So obviously Jeffrey Wright is the voice of the Watcher. Karen Gillan comes back as Nebula. We have Jude Law as Jan Rogg, Rooker as Yondu. Seth Green is Howard the Duck, but he voices Howard the Duck in live action, which Howard the Duck is a CGI character anyway. So those probably is a little easier if your character was CGI anyway. So it's like you're going to have to record your lines no matter what. So for someone like Seth Green or Taika Waititi for Korg, it's not that not that big a deal. yeah, it's not that big a deal. So that one's a pretty good standalone. Again, especially if you like that Blade Runner noir type feel, that's definitely pretty cool. The second one is, what if Peter Quill attacked Earth's mightiest heroes? And the timeline change is Yondu didn't have a change of heart when he kidnapped Peter Quill and actually took Peter straight to Ego, and therefore Ego was able to raise Peter the way he wanted, so that Peter, even as a little kid, is is able to tap into his celestial powers. He ends up coming, Peter ends up coming to Earth in the 80s. Not long, honestly, probably not that long after he originally left, considering that he got kidnapped in the 80s anyway. But he's well into his celestial powers. So we get a kind of 80. How we get like the people have done like if the Avengers had made it in the 90s or the Avengers had been made in the 80s, and they put like their dream like casting. This is what you get if you had the Avengers in the 80s with the characters that we know and the actors we already know. So in this case, it's Michael Douglas as Hank Pym, Haley Atwell as Peggy Carter, John Slattery as Howard Stark, Kurt Russell comes back as Ego, Thor, Chris Hemsworth appears as Thor, Lawrence Fishburne as Dr. Bill Foster, who we met in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, he's the Winter Soldier, and Atandwa Kani as King T'Chaka, and then Hope Van Dyne, who is in this case voiced by Madeline McGraw. So, but yeah, they have to try to figure out how to stop rampaging, preteen who's mad at his dad from destroying everything. And it turns out all he really needed was a friend and someone to actually care for him and not use him like a tool like Ego did and was going to do with adult Peter Quill, which we saw in Guardians Volume 2. And he ends up little Peter ends up making friends with a young Hope Van Dyne who's about the same age at this point. And he ends up confronting Ego just like adult Peter Quill does and stops him from taking over again, just like he tried to do in Guardians Volume 2. And gets to go home to the Pym household and hang out with people who actually give a crap about him. So, it is nice. It is fun to see, kind of this alternative, or early-ish Avengers, quote unquote Avengers. So, but not that the Avengers were a thing yet, because this is the 80s. And Nick Fury doesn't join S.H.I.E.L.D. until the 90s. So, but still, it was a kind of a nice character-centric with, the idea of, Peter Quill still being used by his father, which just goes to show the Ego. The names fit. And in episode 3, which I think is my favorite of the entire, and this will now be added to my annual Christmas Eve watch list.
With a certain nod to a certain debatable is this a Christmas movie or not?
Center of my Muppet Christmas Carol Die Hard Christmas sandwich.
Yep.
Because what if Happy Hogan saved Christmas a la Die Hard style?
Yes. The nod to a certain scene off of Nakatomi Tower just
several scenes.
Yes.
You got Happy climbing through the air ducts. You have Justin Hammer falling off Stark Tower. So.
And of course, perfect person to fall off a Stark Tower.
Yes. The impetus for this is that Justin Hammer gets out of jail right before Age of Ultron, as opposed to staying in jail much longer, as he does in the Sacred Timeline. But we get Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan. Kat Dennings as Darcy. I love Darcy. She's like, worst internship ever. Darcy, you may want to think about maybe actually getting a job.
Yeah.
Pays you. Apparently she's just living doing internships. She's never actually had an actual job. It's all of an internship.
Yeah. I mean, or try to at least find a paid internship. I think you'd qualify for one by now.
Yeah. Although the perks, probably make up for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kobe Smulders back as Maria Hill, Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer, Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner, Jeremy Renner's Clint Barton. So we got a couple of replacements. Mick Wingert does the voice of Tony Stark in What If. He does a pretty good reproduction of Robert Downey Jr.'s voice.
Yes, he does.
So I will give him that. Lake Bell has been doing the voice of Natasha Romanoff. And then Josh Keaton has been doing the voice of Steve Rogers. And then former PopCon guest Ross Marquand does several voices of this. In this particular episode, he does the voice of Werner. because the whole idea is that apparently on Christmas Eve, Tony lets Jarvis go offline to do repairs, to do some self introspection. I don't know what he expects Jarvis to do. Whatever he expects Jarvis to do is Jarvis. And Justin Hammer is like, hey, that's the perfect time to go and attack Stark Tower and get revenge on Tony for everything that happened in Iron Man 2. But as most of the Avengers are not in the tower, Tony is playing Mall Santa Claus. So Happy he has to try to save the day all on his own, a la John McClane in Die Hard, and it is hilarious because he ends up getting injected with Hulk serum, but thankfully it's Hulk serum that is based on the original Super Soldier serum, so therefore the Hulk form retains Happy's personality. But yeah, it's and Justin Hammer gets exactly what's coming to him again.
Oh yes.
Although he does not fall off of Stark Tower like Hans Gruber does, because Happy has more of a conscience than John McClane. But still, oh my god, I love this episode so much. Just cracking up the entire time. So they're trying to get Jarvis back online, but it's going to take forever. So they decide Darcy ends up loading in another AI because Tony has to, and he names them all. We've got Friday, we've got the one that goes into Peter's Spidey suit. In this case, it's Werner, as a nod to Werner Herzog.
Yep.
Which is hilarious because if you know anything about Werner Herzog, he's a German director, writer, and actor. And one of his most famous works is Werner Herzog Eats His Shoe, which is exactly what it sounds like. He eats a shoe.
Lovely.
Yes, it's European art film. So, but yeah, he actually, if he plays the client, if you go back all the way to the beginning of The Mandalorian, Mr. I Want to See the Baby, that is Werner Herzog.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, apparently they asked Werner if he would do the voice in this, but he politely declined. So Ross Marquand came in and did it fairly well. So, but this does actually pull from the comics. First, Tales of Suspense Volume 1, number 75. And again in Iron Man Volume 1, number 84 and 85, Happy gets turned into a Hulk-like creature known as the Freak. But yeah, it's just, oh my god, I love this one so much. Okay.
As soon as I saw it, I was like, I know Rachel's gonna have a field day when she watches this one.
Yep. And they kind of imply that Santa Claus maybe exists in the MCU as well.
Yep.
And then we get what if Iron Man crashed into the Grandmaster? So what if during the Battle of New York, when Tony flies the nuke into the portal, he does not come back out. And it ends up sending him on a journey across the galaxy to Sakaar, because you do, where he meets the Grandmaster. Speaking of Jeff Goldblum.
Yep.
Who does come back to voice the Grandmaster. So, but instead of doing like they do in Thor Ragnarok, where it's kind of, a battle to the death, all of the gladiators. Instead, apparently the Grandmaster likes to do death race instead.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So he gets all of his people to his adoring people to some of them end up joining, and Tony, being Tony, of course, meeting someone whose ego is just as big as his, if not bigger, because the Grandmaster has no conscience. Tony, who wants to, obviously wants to get back home, because he's so far away he can't contact Earth. So he ends up teaming up with Valkyrie, voiced by Tessa Thompson, and Korg, Taika Waititi, to essentially, if he and the Grandmaster make a bet that if Tony can win and beat the Grandmaster in his own race, then the Grandmaster will give him the tech he needs to get back to Earth. But problem is Tony also, Thanos, voiced by Josh Brolin, not happy about his Chitauri being beat in the Battle of New York and wants revenge, so he sends Gamora off to try and kill Tony, which in this case Gamora is voiced by Cynthia McWilliams, who I think is probably the least sounding like the person they're supposed to sound like. I don't think she sounds like Gamora at all, honestly. So I don't think she sounds anything like Zoe Saldana. Maybe a little bit, but it's a little off-putting how it's not quite right, and it's enough not quite right that I'm like, eh. And we learned that Topaz's very stern demeanor in Thor Ragnarok. Yeah, that's a 24/7 thing. Topaz has no sense of humor whatsoever.
No, not just a one-time deal. It's all of the time.
Yeah. So, the thing is, we don't know if Tony actually ends up making it home. He ends up convincing Gamora that she'd be better off doing, instead of being her father's, on-demand assassin, that maybe she should try being her own person and maybe doing the right thing. And of course, Tony being Tony beats the Grandmaster in the race, and then they Tony ends up teaming up with Gamora to take down Thanos. So, which, if you think about the long-term implications for the MCU, that's quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, if Thanos is destroyed not long after the Battle of New York, then that means that everything after the Battle of New York is different. So, but as we leave the end of this, we don't know if Tony is assuming he'll eventually make it. This may be one that in another season they may come back to, is, if Tony ending up making more stops in the process of him getting back to Earth.
Right.
Tony and Gamora's galactic adventures.
Yeah.
It may or may not take Korg along. So, because Valkyrie now is the leader of Sakaar. So Valkyrie ends up in charge wherever she gets left in whatever MCU story it is. So next up this is a follow-up to a thread that got left dangling in season 1 with Captain Carter and Steve Rogers being in the Hydra Stomper in his What If Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper. So obviously, as we saw in season 1, Peggy ends up, following the loosely the plot of Captain America: The First Avenger. So she's the one that gets frozen, wakes up in the modern day. And this actually combines some of the plot of Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier, and a little bit of Black Widow, because we end up going to the Red Room. But they have the ship that Steve and Natasha go on at the start of Winter Soldier instead. Natasha ends up taking secrets or whatever are off the computers, because that's what Natasha does. But they find the Hydra Stomper, which is really it's a form of an Iron Man suit, because it's got the arc reactor, but they find it on the ship and Steve is still in it. The thing is, Steve has been brainwashed by Hydra, and even once they figure out how to Peggy figures out how to get into Steve's consciousness, he has to stay in the suit because the suit is what's keeping him alive, because this Steve never went through the super soldier program, and therefore it's skinny Steve, allergic to everything, could die if a flea sneezed on him, Steve Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
They want to try and figure out a way to save him and get him out of the suit, but it turns out the suit, even though he's now fully aware of who he is, the suit still has tech and essentially a mind of its own. So, he ends up disappearing into the ether again. So obviously this is a plot line that's going to continue. And then Peggy ends up, because Peggy is able to communicate with the Watcher, she has conversations with him about what is the right thing to do for Steve. At one point, Nick Fury tells Natasha that he trusts her to do the right thing, which Samuel L. Jackson actually appears in that movie. So do the right thing. But yeah, this ends with Steve going off to who knows where, and then Peggy disappearing somewhere in time. So specifically 1602. But before we learn more about that, we get what if Kahori reshaped the world. So this is our introduction to a brand new Marvel character. Kahori. She is a member of the Mohawk indigenous tribe, and she has abilities. Essentially, there's this the Tesseract lands in a lake that is in Mohawk territory, and then if you go into that lake and the elders are considered to be worthy, then you will be bestowed with powers. But it also takes you to another world, where those people kind of live in like a utopia type existence. So they're just, happy to be alive and doing their thing. But Kahori wants to go back because, this also kind of steals from Mulan, or not Mulan, Pocahontas, where you get the, the Europeans showing up, in this case, the Spanish, and coming to try and claim the land, and of course, kill all the we've all seen Pocahontas. We've talked about Pocahontas. Yep. We've all heard the song Savages. So Kahari wants to go back, but she wants her new friends to come with her. She's like, these are, we all come from the same elders, we're all brethren. And of course they don't want to, so she figures out how to go back on her own and is able to use these powers that have been bestowed upon her by the Tesseract and the elders to try and stop the Spanish. And eventually, of course, like a lot of these plot lines, the other people from the other the other side of the portal decide to come through as well to help, and then they stop the Spanish. And they end up going all the way over to Spain to tell the queen that, sorry, while you think that you have been bestowed the honor of being the sovereign of like the entire planet, too bad, because we were here first, and sorry, you can Spain's yours. That's great. You want to be the queen of Spain? Fantastic. Everywhere else, hands off, lady. So then essentially they stop the European colonization of the Americas. So, but keep in mind, Kahori and her abilities and what she is able to do, because that will become relevant when we talk about Echo in the near future. So, and it just so happens, this is one of those things that Devery Jacobs is who voices Kahori, is also plays Bonnie in Echo. So so that's cool. Queen Isabella of Spain. So yep. And then we get what if Hela found the 10 rings? So this is set during the time when Hela was the only child of Odin. And she does exactly what Odin talks about in Ragnarok. She was kind of Odin's attack dog, and she becomes so obsessed with, she becomes so obsessed with just power and taking over everything, and then Odin is all like, "Whoa, girl, we've reached a point of peace here. We're good." And she goes off on a tantrum, so she gets the Thor treatment, but instead of Thor's hammer, it's her helmet horn thing, headdress. That strips her of her abilities, and she has to essentially find her conscience to get her powers back. But instead of being sent to the southeast or southwest region like Thor did, she ends up in the general vicinity of where like the second half of Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings takes place. So of course we get Cate Blanchett as Hela, Idris Elba as Hemdall. So but Hela ends up meeting Wenwu, who we know finds the Ten Rings. She ends up meeting Wenwu, and they kind of fall for each other, but then Hela betrays him. Yeah, kind of, because she's like, her helm doesn't work, so she's like, oh, he's got these 10 rings; those could come in handy, as a weapon. But then she ends up, I don't know if it's Morris, because I don't know how long those creatures that Morris is live. I'm just going to assume that it's Morris. I'm just going to assume that these creatures live a very long time. So the same creature that leads Shang-Chi to, his kind of ancestral home is also is also Morris. So to Tao Lao. But then she ends up at Tao Lao, and she essentially goes through the same training and everything that the Shang-Chi does, so that when Wenwu ultimately shows up for revenge, she's able to fight using similar abilities that Shang-Chi has. And she ends up being a good person. So it turns out that she and Wenwu end up teaming up together to stop Odin, because Odin in the process, it's a whole thing. But in the end, it turns out that Hela actually is halfway decent, and she and Wenwu are going to live happily ever after. So, but it's kind of the same plot as Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. But Hela becomes the goddess of life instead of the goddess of death, and then she, and as the leader of Asgard and the Ten Rings combined, can bring liberation to those oppressed across the cosmos. So really just proves that Odin is one of the worst fathers in all of the MCU. More than anything, not winning Father of the Year anytime soon. So and then second to last, we pick back up with Captain Carter after her time travel adventures with What If the Avengers Assembled in 1602? Because we're back in 1602, essentially the time of Robin Hood. And there are these weird anomalies happening that keep causing people to disappear, and Peggy was supposedly supposed to be the person that figures out how to stop this from happening, because Wanda, who is essentially in place of Merlin, this is beyond what she's capable of, but she had this vision that Peggy was supposed to be the person that was supposed to be able to help them. And so they realize that they need to do some jickery pokery with 17th century Avengers. So we have Sir Fury, King Thor Odinson, because Thor is king, Loki, Bruce, Sir Harold the Happy Hogan, Tony Stark, who of course is an inventor, Steve Rogers, who is essentially Robin Hood, because that's exactly who Steve Rogers would be in the early 1600s. Scott Lang, and Bucky Barnes, and Doctor Strange, and Natasha Romanoff. So yeah, there's this whole jiggery pokery thing, and Bruce still turns into the Hulk, but with a weird mustache and hair, and essentially have to figure out, Tony creates this whole mechanism that, because there's someone there who's out of time, who's there but doesn't belong in that time period, and they have to figure out who it is, and send them back, and essentially that'll stabilize the timelines. It's very Doctor Who-ish in a way, if you think about it. Protect the timelines. It's also very Marvel. But it turns out it's Steve. It turns out it's Steve, even though Peggy thought that maybe she had been reunited with a version of Steve, because the Peggy of 1602 died. And so she thought maybe she would get do a little something with this Steve, but nope. He has to go back to whatever time he came from, and Peggy is without Steve again. Womp womp. But that's okay, because she ends up with a new adventure, because Stephen Strange shows up, and he has the ability to get her back to her proper time period. But he asks her a favor first, and he claims that he has been collecting baddies from various timelines so that he can protect the universe. It's a lie. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter what his reasoning is, because it's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
He's just
okay. Tell us another one there, Strange.
Yeah. What he's really doing is he's collecting people so that he can pull the kind of like a weeping angel, where he could pull the like almost temporal energy from them and generate a universe where Christine is still alive. Because this is the same Doctor Strange that we saw in season 1, where he absolutely loses his mind because no matter what he does, Christine dies in every in every permutation of every universe he goes to. And he can't stand it. But he's convinced Peggy that, if he can lock up all these supposedly bad people, then it's better for the overall universe. So he sends her to go collect Kahori. But Kahori convinces Peggy that Steven is full of shit. So they go back to the sanctum, and as he's trying to take all these people, which include like Hela and Wenwu and Surtur and a lot of visuals that they actually have to work together to try and stop Strange Supreme, because that's who this is. Because it's what if Strange Supreme intervened. And that includes some of the zombies. So we see some of our zombie Marvel heroes, including Zombie Scarlet Witch, and she's still just as awful as she was in the first season. In the process, they managed to stop Steven, and with the destruction of the machine and his destruction, his universe does get reborn, but without him in it. So Christine lives because Stephen Strange is not there to affect her life. So but yeah, there's a Peggy ends up with the Infinity Gauntlet and all the Infinity Stones at one point. There's some there's a whole bunch of Marvel tech and stuff that, I mean, we get Ultron armor. We've got Killmonger, so we've got a Black Panther suit, we've got the Infinity Gauntlet. It's like all of this, it's like anything and everything that we've seen in both the live action MCU and What If all kind of comes together for this whole big thing. Ultimately Steven gets what he wants, where Christine doesn't die, but he doesn't get to live to see it. That's the trade-off. Christine lives, he dies. And at this point, because she's fixed off the Watch, and because again Peggy can see and communicate with the Watcher, he offers to take her back to her time, but she's like, I think I'll stick with you and go see what's happening in some of the other universes. She's like, my universe will still be there when I get there. So, but the interesting thing is we see the world tree from Norse mythology, which usually contains the 9 realms. But this one is the one we saw at the end of Loki season 2. So everything seems to be going back to the TVA. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
You got this. You got Deadpool. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
All roads lead to Rome, as they say.
Yeah, in this case, all roads lead to the TVA because it's all about the timelines. So, I mean, it's such an interesting premise. It really, really is. This whole idea, of what if, and the fact that they are able to do just, some really like thoughtful and like thought-provoking storylines, but also, just also some utter ridiculousness, like the zombie episode. I mean, it's fun, but it's just ridiculous as well. You got Happy doing Die Hard. We've got Marvel Die Hard, essentially. We got an MCU version of Die Hard. So it's like, it's, that episode in season 1 with Doctor Strange, trying, having his heart broken, who knows how many times, because no matter what he can do is save Christine, and to see the fallout from that and to have that carry over into this. So it's like, in theory, the whole Strange Supreme thing is tied up. That thread is tied up. Obviously, Peggy going on in adventures with the Watcher. Maybe Peggy and the Tony Stark from the Sakaar episode will cross paths at some point. I don't know. But that's a thread that's left dangling. Obviously Peggy's story with Skinny Steve and the Hydra Stomper is not over yet. I just love how creative they are getting with this, and it's like they can do anything and everything, and it doesn't matter because it's just what if. Canon doesn't matter. Except for the canon that they are creating in their own little universes. But the overall MCU canon that we know and love to hate and hate to love is a moot point. So, and like I said, it's great that so many of the live action folks are coming back to do the voices. Does Benedict Cumberbatch have to be doing, the voice for a cartoon? Probably not, but he is, which I think is cool. Obviously Robert Downey Jr., he's hung that up. So, is, and like I said, the guy that is stepped in is not bad. Most of them are not bad except for Gamora. So, hopefully they can. I don't know if I'm alone in that particular opinion, so it might not matter what my opinion is. They may continue with the same voice actress, or maybe they'll change it if other people feel the same way. I don't know. But yeah, this. I like that we have this. I like that we have this alternative to turn to. Especially right now, because as far as MCU stuff, we're getting a little thin. So.
Yeah, I was seeing somebody saying that there's just one Marvel movie coming out this year, and only 2 shows scheduled, and 1 is already aired. So things will be a bit thin on the ground for the time being, but. So there you go. Anything else you want to talk about season 2?
If you have not watched it yet, you should.
Yes. And that one episode that introduces the stuff that ties in with Echo. Just be aware that there's a lot of native language speaking that doesn't get translated. No, your audio is not going kerfloofy, but it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yes, they worked
to
with
hear that native language.
Yeah, between this and Echo, they've been very cognizant of making sure that they respect the indigenous tribes that they are representing in the work. So they've been working with members of those tribes to make sure that the language is correct, that the clothing is portrayed correctly. So but yeah, they don't, at least for this, they don't translate. Echo, they do translate a lot of the Choctaw, but still not everything. But you could still get the gist of what's going on. But yeah, don't think that maybe your audio or your closed captions suddenly like turned off or something. No, it's just some of that stuff they don't translate for. Because they feel like they don't need to.
Exactly.
Which I think is totally a legitimate thing,
Oh
yeah. The acting should be doing its job.
Yes. Which it does. It's just I want to make people aware that nope. There's no issue, but it's absolutely gorgeous, and I'm glad that they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. So that would be the biggest thing, is if you have not watched much like the first season, while this is what if, there is some crossover into the MCU timeline that we know.
Right.
Some of we saw, I've gone mad Doctor Strange in What If, and then we saw that version, or a version of it appear in Multiverse of Madness. So, and like I said, it's a different indigenous tribe, but the idea of these abilities with these indigenous characters is going to be important in the live action too. So if you've not watched Echo yet, or if you have watched Echo, you know what we're talking about. If you've not watched Echo yet, you should watch Echo. There's it's like 5 episodes, so it is brutal. But we'll talk about Echo when we get to talking about Echo. It's coming up. So
all right. Well, on that note, if any of our listeners have feedback on What If Season 2 or anything else we discussed during the podcast and the news and whatnot, you can send us some feedback. Our email address is fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, which is thefiveishfangirls.com. That also has links to our social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and places you can also leave comments, and also our show notes as well. So pretty much anything we talked about, there'll be links about it in the show notes as well. And also, if you feel so inclined, and if you can, we have a Patreon and a merch shop that you can help support the podcast by those means, which is always greatly appreciated. But we appreciate you, whether you're listening, sending in feedback, whatever it is. We love you all. Thank you for being our audience. It's awesome, and hope you all are doing good. Whatever it is you're up to.
Yep. All right. Wow. Ooh, pardon me. I'm like that, like Anna waiting for the it's coronation. I don't know, elated or gassy, somewhere in that zone. Pardon me. So, well, with that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Take that, vile asparagus woman! Thank you, our Fiveish fam, for joining us on this week's geeky journey. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Stay connected with us on our website, thefiveishfangirls.com, and follow us on most social media with @FiveishFangirls. Plus, check out our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back, to see how we're making a positive impact in our community. Until next time, stay nerdy and let the squee continue.